Hi everybody, thank you so much for your questions regarding tax. As in, there were so many, including mine. I decided I have to get help from KRA because I don't know the answers. And I am so happy to have with me Mbugua from KRA, who is going to help me. He's an officer and he's involved in tax. Like, he knows this stuff, it oozes out of his pores. So please join us as we deal with the questions that we face day to day. And the first question I'm going to ask Mbugua, thank you so much for coming, is on employees who are domestic workers. So for a long time, I thought, look, you know, this domestic worker, yes, works for me, but it is their responsibility to file their own taxes because, you know, they're the taxpayer and they're the ones who have the PIN. And I'm not an institution, it's just me, Rina, who is employing this person. What is my obligation as a Kenyan who has a domestic worker in my house?
That's a very good question. And the answer to that is you're an employer. You're an employer. And so an employer under the Income Tax Act has certain obligations that they need to fulfill with regards to income that is, or payments to their employees.
Okay.
Now, it may not be necessary to deduct tax from these employees if their income is below what we call the threshold, pay threshold. For instance, in 2017, any income below 12,000 bob was not chargeable to tax. In 2018, incomes above 13,300 and above there is chargeable to pay as you earn. Okay. So if you have employees who earn these amounts of money, then you need to deduct pay as you earn from them. It is an obligation by the employer to deduct tax from these employees.
Okay.
Yes, that's rule number one.
Okay.
Yes, because ordinarily they will not pay taxes on their own on monthly basis. Remember, we need this money constantly. And that is why the government needs payee remittances every month, just to help the government in terms of its cash flow. And number two, it's also a patriotic duty for the employer to ensure that the employees who benefit from the services rendered by the government are also paying their fair share.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's the process if there's somebody who's out there who hasn't been doing it and wants to start remitting tax to KRA, deducting and remitting to KRA? Do they need to register in some way? Or?
Yes, we call them tax obligations. Tax obligations. For an employer, it is required that they have what we call a pay-as-you-earn obligation, payee obligation. What that means is that they are now allowed to deduct and remit the same and pay for this, pay for the taxes that they deduct from their employees.
Okay.
So you need a tax obligation known as pay-as-you-earn.
And where do you get that?
You apply for it.
Online?
Online.
On iTax?
On iTax.
Okay.
Yes.
And so once you get it, then you can start to remit?
You can start, yes, you can deduct and remit.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to go on to my next question. And my next question, Mbugua, is there is somebody who is a trader, all right? So they buy, say, secondhand goods in bulk and sell it. And sometimes there's work, sometimes there isn't. And so for them, they're like, by the way, Mbugua, I don't qualify to pay tax. I mean, I have an irregular income. Sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. What would you say to somebody like that?
They need, what is important is that income, does it qualify for tax chargeability? Does it qualify to be taxed? And that's the question. And especially with people who deal with irregular incomes, you'd find that, especially people who deal with second-hand goods, you will find that they may need to apply for certain obligations, not only income tax. You realize that some of these traders are big in terms of the volume that they transact on a yearly basis. Irregular does not mean that they don't have volumes. Probably the orders are quite huge and they come one-off. And at the end of the year, you find that the volume of transactions that they engage in is probably exceed even 5 million shillings. And so they need to apply for value-added tax obligations. Wow. Okay, they need to do that. And for income tax purposes, they need to file their returns at the end, after the end of the year, after the end of the year, That is 6 months after the end of their year. And they need to pay their taxes. If, as we had communicated earlier, that their tax obligation, the tax that they owe is more than 40,000 shillings, then they need to break it in the subsequent years into 4 equal installments.
Okay.
Yes. And you find them most of these people in the informal sector think that paying taxes is not for them. We say anybody who has income that is derived or accrued in Kenya, that income must be charged as long as it qualifies for tax chargeability.
When you say qualifies for tax chargeability, you mean that it is over the taxable minimum?
Yes, over the taxable minimum.
Okay.
Yes.
So then my next question is, actually maybe we should stop there, because there's some more questions I have and this video might end up being too long. So we'll cut it there and then we'll continue. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I would suggest if you have any questions, please send them. We don't have a lot of time, but even for the future, for you to understand how to continue to file and pay your taxes on time to avoid any penalties and any interest on those penalties. Stay well and subscribe if you haven't. This is Rina Hicks and you are watching MoneyWise.